So I wanted to talk to you guys about something that I came across some time ago, and I found it to be more than interesting. And just recently, I was working and listening to a short clip by Mike Adams, the health ranger, who was talking about this. He was talking about mice, the Calhoun experiment, which was done between 1968 and 1970, where John B. Calhoun created a rodent utopia, Universe 25. And from this, he began a behavioral study. You see, Calhoun was looking to see the effects of population density among the mice, or how overpopulation could affect their society. But what he discovered was something much more profound than that: total population collapse. To understand this experiment on a deeper level, all you have to know is a little something about mice, a little something about humans, and a little something about what our society looks like right now. We're not too far off, folks. I mean, we are a lot smarter than mice, but we are also a lot more emotional, more violent, and more deviant. And in a state of welfare, we are like pets, rats in a cage. Most mice will not travel more than 10 to 30 feet from where they live. So if you see one, you know that it lives only a few feet away from where it was seen. They typically live less than a year, although they can live 1 to 3 years. But during that time, a female can produce around 10 litters on average, with 6 to 12 young being born for each litter. So they, of course, do multiply fast. Mice live in colonies, and each colony is established by urine and feces marking. They use their senses for range, memory of locations, pathways, obstacles, and are not deterred by new obstacles in their path. Now, some other common behaviors among mice are things like constant grooming. I know it's weird, they like to keep themselves groomed and clean, but don't mind living in filth, right? Well, it is an animal after all, and a mouse that grooms itself too much could be a sign of stress, or a mouse that is very nervous. They will groom each other, sometimes to show dominance and sometimes more aggressively, taking some fur off in the process. Bright lights will stress them out. Unfamiliar environments will stress them out. Being around other mice they don't know will stress them out. Having their home destroyed or taken away will stress them out. And they will go curiously looking for whatever is causing the stress. They like to chase each other, playfully and aggressively. They like tunneling and burrowing, creating pathways. They are communal animals with a hierarchy. They are territorial, and the females can be very aggressive when protecting their young. They are timid creatures and driven by pheromones. According to the National Library of Medicine, mice and rats have long served as the preferred species for biomedical research animal models due to their anatomical, physiological, and genetic similarity to humans. Advantages of rodents include their small size, ease of maintenance, short life cycle, and abundant genetic resources. But not only are mice similar in these ways, it seems we also share some similar behavioral patterns as well. Death Squared: The Explosive Growth and Demise of a Mouse Population by John B. Calhoun, MD. Section on Behavioral Systems, Laboratory of Brain Evolution and Behavior at the National Institute of Mental Health, 1973. So the first thing Calhoun did was he wanted to identify the attributes of the environment which would contribute to the mortality rate of the mice in the experiment and eliminate them to reduce the mortality rate. This came down to 5 factors: emigration, or in other words, a mouse could move out into a new area that is unfamiliar or potentially more dangerous, contributing to an increase of mortality. Resource shortage is another factor that he wanted to eliminate. The others were inclement weather, disease, and predation. So to get rid of the emigration problem, Calhoun created a closed space with 4 54-inch walls, which the mice could utilize as space, but at the very top was another 17 inches of unstructured, galvanized wall so that the mice could not climb over it. There were 4 3-inch tunnels, 34 inches long. The mesh and the tunnels gave access to nesting boxes, which could hold up to 15 mice at a time. There were multiple feeders and water bottles that could allow multiple mice to feed on one feeder simultaneously. These mice had plenty of space, plenty of food, and plenty of housing. The maximum occupancy for the space was 3,840 mice. However, the population peaked at 2,200 mice, then collapsed completely. But I'll get to that in a moment. By the way, during that time, 20% of the nest were usually vacant or unoccupied. Now, the experiment was done inside of a building, so we know that the temperatures and overall weather was moderate and controlled. The mice used in the experiment came from the National Institutes for Health breeding colony, so he got the cleanest mice he could find. Background check on the mice genetics to help to prevent any types of diseases from forming, as well as keeping the environment free from bacteria and keeping the grounds clean from feces. And of course, there were no predators that could get to this mouse utopia. So, Calhoun started with 4 pairs of mice. There was a 21-day weaning period, followed by 104 days before the first litter was born. The population went from 20 to 40 to 80 to 160 to 320 to 620. After 5 doublings of the number of days, this came out to 145 days. So, as the population continued to grow, the mice began to structure a hierarchy where there was a division of 14 brood groups. Each one was dominated by an alpha male of the group, which would also be the most active male of the group. The higher-ranking females were also more closely associated with these males. And because all the mice had plenty of food, the ones at the top had more youth that exceeded the number of older mice. And these younger mice were well taken care of by the group. Okay, now things are going to start to get pretty human here, pretty fast. So, everything was fine and dandy, and the mice had everything they needed. The only thing left was the struggle for power and dominance. And so the males ended up separating the men from the boys. And the less aggressive males were often attacked and injured by the more dominant males. And they retreated to a central area of the tank. And that separation of males caused their female counterparts to separate from them to higher areas in the living space. The alpha males no longer had competition competition, which caused them to lower their defenses. And so the females who were protecting their nest had to now step up and increase their aggression to continue to protect their young. Basically, taking on the male territorial role. When this happened, the young became more exposed to attack and being wounded. So they started leaving the home early, before the normal weaning period. The mothers were being attacked during birth. They had to drop their young off in different spaces. Some of the young, all the bad things evil people do to children, that's what these mice got into. And so this affected the population growth, which slowed down. So here's what happened. The combined effect of these several factors affecting reduced conception, increased fetal mortality, and increased pre-weaning mortality largely accounts for the abrupt decline in rate of population growth characterizing phase C. Population increase abruptly ceased on day 560 after colonization. A few mice born up until day 600 survived past weaning. Between these times, deaths just slightly exceeded births. Beyond the time of the last surviving birth on day 600, the incident of pregnancies declined very rapidly, with no young surviving. Last conception was about day 920, with the increase in rate of mortality accompanying senescence. The population has continued to decline in numbers. By March 1st, 1972, the average age of survivors was 776 days, over 200 days beyond menopause. On June 22nd, 1972, there were only 122 survivors, 22 males, 100 females. Projection of the prior few months of exponential decline in numbers indicates that the last surviving male will be dead on May 23rd, 1973, 1,780 days after colonization, almost 5 years. Toward the end of this experiment, Calhoun noticed that there was a group of male counterparts that never engaged in sexual approaches towards females. He called them the beautiful ones, who spent most of their day grooming, eating, and sleeping. And it ended with non-reproducing females and the beautiful ones. And the beautiful ones were mice that didn't really enter society. They were healthy, but had no social interactions and were never taught to have them or how to live with social challenges. They were still provided with everything they needed to live, but never had to cope with any social issue. The failure of the mice was not overpopulation, but it was the result of living in a welfare state. A utopia where everything was provided for them, where they didn't have to compete for anything. Does this sound like many of the things we deal with in society today? Declining birth rates, high divorce rate, increase in deviant behavior, role reversals. And we have a growing population of the beautiful ones, of both males and females, in a growing state of welfare. You know, I was watching a clip from a video podcast recently, and there was a panel of women on that podcast. They were asked the question, if they had to choose one, would it be a real relationship with a man or Instagram? They chose Instagram. Why? Well, for some women, they are getting their needs met through social media. Every day, many of them are getting new subscribers, likes. There are a lot of men who are sliding into their DMs, giving them attention and validation. Some women are content creators on Instagram and make a living through the platform, so they get attention, validation, and money. There are also men who send money, gifts. They offer trips, free food. Every little bit is a dopamine hit. Some of their dopamine receptors are just shot. Why would anyone whose dopamine receptors are all burnt out want to put any effort into being with any real person at the end of the day? Gentlemen, you are no match. And the men of today are no better. In fact, it reminds me of a passage I read, written by Yamamoto Tsunetomo. He said, "It is a wretched thing that the young men of today are so contriving and so proud of their material possessions. Men with contriving hearts are lacking in duty. Lacking in duty, they will have no self-respect." And basically what he is saying is that men were replacing their duty with clever, divisive thinking in order to get what they wanted. In a declining civilization, such as the utopia of Universe 25, I think there would be a lot of people who would spend their lives trying to figure out a way to get over that wall. That's all for now, and there is more to come very soon. Everyone have a great day or evening, and until next time, friends, as always, stay awake, stay aware, stay safe, and I'll talk to you all soon.